Okay, so the next section in the workbook we're going to go over is the safety gear, the minimum requirements you need. So most of us, depending on what you're doing and where you're operating, it changes. For safety gear, you guys need to know what gear kicks in where legally. Obviously, the more gear you've got, the better. But this is more about you understanding what you need, when you need it, and it's all to do distance offshore or what you're doing. Okay. Now, minimum gear you need: inboard motor. Doesn't matter where you go, you need one of these, what we call a fire extinguisher. Okay, this is the most common one. It's a white band, which just lets us know it's powder or dry chemical, simply because you can't electrocute yourself with these ones. So inboard motor. If you've got a dinghy with an outboard motor, you don't need one unless you've got a cooker or something like that on board, what they call a hydrocarbon consuming appliance. You can have one if you want, but you need it by law when you've got an inboard motor or something that burns fuel. Fire extinguishers, pretty straightforward. It's the gauge. The gauge tells you, like this one you probably can't see it, but the gauge, if it's in the green in the middle, it's good. If it's in the red, it's no good. This one's dropped down to the red, so it's undercharge, no good. Okay. Powder ones, especially on boats, they tend to compact down the bottom, so it's good to get them every now and then and break that up. Otherwise, it all turns into a block down the bottom. But that's your fire extinguisher. So if you've got an inboard motor, it doesn't matter where you go, you need one, whether it's in the river or you're going 50 mile offshore. Now, let's say we've got an outboard motor and when we're in what we call protected waters. So what's protected? Protected from the big waves. Okay, so wind creates all the energy on the water. The stronger the wind blows, the longer, the duration, how long it blows for, 5 minutes or a day. And what they call the distance over the water the wind blows, which is the fetch. Okay, so the longer the distance is the wind blows over the water, the bigger the waves get. So if we're in protected waters, which would be the Swan River, Mandurah Estuary, all you need by law is a baler or a bilge pump. So a baler is just something to scoop the water out. A bilge pump is just a pump that pumps water out of the bilge. The bilge is just the bottom void of the boat. So if you've got a dinghy, your feet are in the bilge. If you've got a boat with floorboards, a deck, underneath that, that's where the bilge is. So it's just the bottom part of the boat. So protected waters, all you need is a baler or a bilge pump if you've got an outboard motor. Now the weird thing there is you don't need an anchor or a life jacket, so that confuses a lot of people. You can have one if you want, but by law you don't need that on a boat until you're in what we call unprotected waters, which is the ocean. So as soon as we leave the river, we need to add our anchor, our life jackets and our inshore flares, they're the handheld ones. And then 2 nautical miles, we need to add the EPIRB, which is just a little device that sends a message to a satellite. I'll go through the individual components later on, but we're just trying to get your head around what you need and what you don't need. So as soon as we leave the river, we add our anchor, jackets and inshore flares. 2 miles is EPIRB. And then 5 mile is radio and offshore flares. Okay, so 5 mile on a good day is the horizon, radio and your offshore flares, what we call our parachute flares or your rocket flares or whatever you want to call them. Okay, so life jackets, this is a life jacket. Okay, how do you know what sort of life jacket? There's all different types. Boats, as soon as we're in the ocean, unprotected waters, we need what we call a type 1. It's always written on it. 100 or higher is a type 1, so it could be 100, 150, whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as it's over 100, it's meant for saving your life. These are always high visibility. This one's yellow, could be orange. Got to be weight rated. So this one here says, what does it say? 40 kilos plus. Okay, so it's an adult's life jacket. It supports the head and neck. It's meant to roll you over on your back. These ones are cheap ones. They don't last too long, so keep an eye on your straps. They're usually the first things that go. Keep them out of the sun. They'll last a lot longer. Then you've got another type of life jacket, which is what we call, once again, it's written on it, so this looks totally different, a lot lighter, more comfortable. This is what we call a type 2 or a type 3. This is a level 50. So this has got half the float of the 100. This is not meant for saving your life. And this is a lot smaller, so it says junior, but once again it's weight rated. This is 25 to 40 kilos. This is a kid's jacket, obviously. So who would wear these? If you're on a jet ski. Doesn't matter if you're in the ocean or the river. Jet skis, you've got to wear one all the time. Okay, doesn't matter whether you're on the back or driving it, everybody on board must wear one. Because you've got to wear them all the time, they wear the more comfortable ones, which is fair enough. If you're going more than 400 metres off the beach in the ocean with a jet ski, PWC, then you've got to go the proper jackets. These are no good then. So if you're, say, going more than 400 metres, say a mile, you need to add your inshore flares as well as proper jackets. More than 2 mile, you need your EPIRB. Same rules. By law, you're not meant to go more than 5 miles on a jet ski if the jet ski is under 3.75 metres, of which most of them are. There's a few bigger jet skis they tell me around now that are bigger than that, which is fine. You just need to add the appropriate safety gear. Alright, flares. So I keep all my flares in it, just a waterproof container. So this is a smoke flare, handheld. Okay, so this is for inshore. As soon as we leave the river, we go in the ocean, we need 2 of these and 2 red ones. The red one looks exactly the same, it's just got a red top instead of orange. It's got a cross on there instead of a circle, so if it was dark or whatever, you could feel it and still tell. Smoke flares, pretty straightforward. There's even visual diagrams here, so if you couldn't read English, you could still figure it out. So the wind's going that way, we hold it downwind, pull that, smoke goes that way. So when would you use a smoke flare? When you can see someone. During the day, obviously, it's no good at night. Nobody can see smoke at night. So if I could see a plane flying overhead, or if I could see a boat in, a couple of mile away, smoke flare. So the red parachute, the red handheld, looks exactly the same as the smoke, except it's red up the top. But if you're colourblind, you could still tell because it's got a cross up there. Okay, but operates exactly the same way. So this is just like the Olympic torch. So wind's going that way, we hold it out here away from us. Okay, you'll burn yourself badly. So when would I use a red handheld? At night time when you can see someone's lights. So handheld flares when you can see someone. Smoke for the day, red for night. Alright, and then your anchor. So when do we need an anchor on the boat? If you see unprotected waters. So, I carry mine all the time, so that's my decision. So this is the most common one, what we call a Danforth. Pivots on itself. Most of you guys know it as a sand anchor, but there's different varieties of sand anchor. The guy with a big boat with an anchor winch, he's probably got a plough or a spade. Still a sand anchor, it's just a different type. So if I'm dropping it in the sand, why do I still need all this chain on it? I'm going to drop this because it's heavy. The reason why, shouldn't be worrying about the reef because you're dropping it in the sand. So the main reason, it is a bit tougher and all that sort of thing, but the main reason is it takes the pull out of the boat. So if the anchor's there, half the chain's lying in the sand, the other half's like a shock absorber taking the pull out of the boat. So by the time the boat pulls on the anchor, it pulls it sideways, the flukes, the sharp bits drop down the anchor goes. Okay. If you had rope going straight to the anchor, it's always going to want to pull it up and it won't lie down properly. Okay, so that's your anchor. How much rope do you put out? It's a common question. 5 to 1 is the rule of thumb in calm conditions. So 5 times your depth. So if I'm in 2 metres of water, 5 times 2 is 10. We'll put out 10 metres of rope. Now that is just a rule of thumb. Okay, so what that means is you can put more. It just depends. Okay, just bear in mind if the wind swings, you don't get tangled up with boats near you. But the moral of the story is if your anchor's ever dragging, so how would you know if your anchor's dragging? So you'd line up the, it might be the orange roof with a pine tree behind it or whatever it is in the distance. What you do is you keep an eye on that, okay? And if that moves over time, your anchor's dragging. Sometimes it's subtle, so keep a watch. It's a skipper's job, obviously. So if your anchor's dragging, what would you do? Assuming you're still on sand, let out more rope. Because what's happened is your chains come out of the sand and your anchor starts to drag. So you let out more rope, your chain lies back down, it stops you again. If you run out of rope, it's time to come in. You shouldn't be out there. EPIRBs. So when do we need an EPIRB on the boat? There's an EPIRB. Okay, so they're battery operated, they've got expiry dates. This one's 2020. Lanyard, this is meant to go to you. Okay, so this is meant to float. This is what we call a marine, like 406 megahertz is the frequency it operates on. All EPIRBs are 406 now, okay? But this one here will last twice as long. It'll float in the water next to you. It goes to you, not the boat. So you can get personal EPIRBs, like you might be dirt biking, or some of them even come in life jackets, like little sticks. That's not good enough. You can have that as an additional EPIRB, but this one here is registered to the boat. So if this goes off, they know, okay, it's Pete's boat, it's a white boat, he's got a VHF radio, all that information comes up on their screen, besides my personal details. They're pretty straightforward. Lift, it says lift. Slide that down and it's on. This is a test button. Meant to periodically just test, just lets me know the battery's okay. That's your EPIRB. You've got to register them with AMSA. When you buy an EPIRB, it's all the details are in the box, but easiest way to do it's online. Update your EPIRB details. Every couple of years they'll send me an email, has anything changed? If it has, I update it. If it hasn't, I just say no. Then you're meant to print off a sheet. Okay, I keep it in my flare container. It's got all my details. So if you get pulled over, they want to see that it's registered. You're meant to keep that on board. Okay, so that's why these things containers are good. You just drop everything in there. Okay, so that's your EPIRB. How far out do we need it? 2 mile. Or more than 400 metres off an island that's more than 2 mile. So what that means is if you lived at Rottnest, okay, you can't go another 2 mile out. You can only go 400 metres before you need your EPIRB. So EPIRBs are 2 nautical miles off the mainland, or 400 metres off an island that's more than 2 mile. Alright, then we get to 5 mile. The gear at 5 mile, we need parachute flares, rocket flare, whatever you want to call it, bit bigger. Once again, it's got, you know, diagrams. Meant to take this off. The end cap, okay, there's an arrow, it says there, and then you pull this down, toggle. So if the wind's coming, so the wind's still going that way, then this one I'd point it slightly into the wind, hold it away from you obviously because this is going to blast off. Pull your toggle, up it goes. So when would you use a parachute flare? Long range. Okay, you only need it when you're more than 5 mile. 5 nautical miles is 9 kilometres. It's a long way. So day or night, these guys have got the greatest range. So if you're beyond 5 mile, 9 k's, and you're trying to attract the attention of someone on the land, then you'd be going for one of these. Parachute flares, 5 nautical miles. Be careful, these are dangerous, can be dangerous. And then the other thing at 5 nautical miles is your marine radio. So it's up to you whether you have a VHF, very high frequency, or a 27 megahertz, which operates across the band of 27 meg. Either one's got an emergency channel. VHF is 16, 27 meg is 88. But if you didn't know that, like mine, I've got a VHF, technically you need an operator's license for that, which I've got. I've got a red button that says 16 on it, so I press that button and it'll dial that channel for me. Your 27 meg's usually got a rotary dial. It's like comparing analog to digital. Most of the all the channels are written in black, 86, whatever. You get to 88, which is the emergency channel, that'll be written in red. So you're looking for the red one if you're ever in trouble. And in the book they talk about Mayday and Pan-Pan and Securite, which confuses people. Like, we've all heard of Mayday from the movies. Mayday means you're going down. You're going to lose the boat, you lost the radio, you're all in the water. That's best case scenario. So Mayday is grave and imminent danger to the boat. Pan-Pan's an urgent call, so that means you've got big problems, but you're not going to disappear, you're not going to lose the radio. So Pan-Pan might be someone having a heart attack. Someone's been bitten by something and they're losing blood. So Pan-Pan is what we call an urgent call for help. And then a Securite is a safety call. So that's not necessarily you need someone to come and get you, that's just something out of the ordinary. So, you know, it could be something floating in the water that shouldn't be there. It's a navigational hazard, strong wind warning, something like that, a Securite. So these are just prefixes that they put in before. So Sea Rescue do a Securite for the coastal waters forecast. So they'll get on channel 88 or 16 and they'll do a Securite, all boats, coastal waters forecast from blah 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 to blah blah blah. Please go to channel 86. Everybody that wants to listen to the blow by blow forecast goes to the working station so they don't tie up the emergency channel and listens to the forecast. So that's pretty much it for radios, but if you're ever in trouble you just ask for help. Okay, so that's the safety gear. Minimum gear you need: outboard motor in the river, just a baler or bilge pump. Once we leave the river, we had our anchor, jackets and inshore flares. 2 miles your EPIRB, 5 miles your radio and your offshore flares. Okay, so EPIRB's a hard one to remember. If you can stick EPIRB and you hit it 2 mile, you can sort of work everything else either side of it. As long as you don't think that you need an anchor or a life jacket in the river, because as of September 2018 you don't. That might change, but that's the law. Obviously in real life, the more safety gear you got on board the better, because it gives you multiple avenues. This is an international distress call. You know, do you have to help people in trouble? Yeah, you do. A foghorn is an international distress, not that too many foghorns here, but anything that gets your attention. So you've got to help people in trouble if you can. You don't have to tow them, that's your decision as a skipper, but you just can't drive past them if they're waving you down or holding a smoke flare. You just can't drive past and wave. If you're able to offer assistance and they need it, you must. Okay, so that's the safety gear component in the workbook.